Welcome, this is Holly with Wild Blessings. It's another Teaching Tuesday, and we're just going to surf nature's wave tonight and just talk about what is on God's grocery stores right now. So, right here in the high country anyway. There's just so much abundance. We'll talk about what's there from roots to shoots and to fruits and all the way up to nuts and berries, etc. So we're going to have so much fun tonight. We're going to make a wild tea. We're going to do a wild cooking demonstration. I'm going to talk a little bit about this amazing plant right here. This is Queen Anne's lace, and we'll make some fritters with them. And we're going to talk about, let's see, I guess that's it. And I'll give you a few ideas about what's coming up with in-person classes with Wild Blessings. So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pour tea. And one of the things about Queen Anne's lace is that it's really well known for the way it bird nests, which means as the seeds set, as the flowers set into seed, they start to go from an umbel like this into a little, they close up like a cup. So they go from like a saucer to a cup, and the seeds are all inside of here. And there's just amazing things that you can do with these seeds. And it's an amazing plant for digestive issues. It's in the same family as dill and anise and caraway and parsley, and it's the Apiaceae family, which are all umbrella like flowers like this. And it's just the most amazing family, full of wonderful spices and flavorings, but it also has some real bummers, like it has poison hemlock and water hemlock and fool's parsley and giant hogweed, and these plants are very, very toxic and poisonous. So you have to be super careful when you're harvesting Queen Anne's lace. I spent hours today with Max out in the field gathering, and it was so much fun, but I know which is which. And so the most important thing to remember is that the Queen Anne, has hairy legs. So if you look at her stem, it is hairy. And if you look at poison hemlock stem, which the flower is similar, but it's not quite, I'll tell you why it's different. The stem is slick and it's got purple on it, and it's hollow, and the Queen stem is it's full, so it's not hollow at all. So it's whole. Anyway, the other thing that's so beautiful about this beautiful flower is that the umbel, or the bracts underneath, are just elegant, and they're really long and gorgeous. And the interesting thing about this family is that the flowers are tiny, and they're shaped in little umbrellas or little umbels. They're called compound umbels, and each of these little stems coming up from the main stem come at the exact same point, and they come out into these beautiful little satellite flowers. And the flowers have 5 petals and 5 stamens, all of the flowers in the Apiaceae family, or the Umbrellaceae family, or the parsley family. They have lots of different names for the family, but all the family has similar characteristics. These are very edible, and then they have those poisonous lookalikes, which are not, it's just important to know. But the most important thing about it is that the only one that bird cages like this when it goes to seed is the Queen, and she has hairy legs. So that's extremely important. And she smells like a carrot. Very aromatic. Actually, this Daucus carota is the original carrot, and this is how they cultivated the carrots that we now put in our gardens. And if we were to actually put the seeds of this plant into good soil, we would get larger roots, and we could actually cultivate carrots ourselves, which is exciting. So I have over here a whole bunch of the seeds, and they're actually, when they're not ripe, they're called fruits, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I wanted to talk about my tea and what I've put into it. So it has many medicinal and amazing benefits besides edible ones, and you can eat it, and you can play with it, and you can use it for healing in lots of ways. But drinking it as a tea is one of the best ways that you can use Queen Anne's lace. So I thought for my wild tea, I would do that. So what I've done is I've mixed the seeds, a little bit of fruits of the Queen, and then some anise seed, because that's also a carminative, which means it's digestive and it's good for flatulence and windiness and gas. And so if you're going to eat like a really difficult meal that would be hard to digest, maybe with lots of carbohydrates or lots of meat or something, it would be good to make a tea of this. So what I like to do is put these seeds into my mortar and pestle and then just grind it up. And then put that into, hold on, I've got this really cool little sieve that's a cup. I put that into my cup and then I'm going to pour these in here like that. You can also decoct them rather than use an infusion, but I don't really want to make it that strong. If you're really working with some serious health issues, I would definitely do that. And it's very excellent with kidney and bladder issues. And honestly, as a diuretic, you want to be able to flush out toxins. And so probably the best way to handle that would be to drink a good tea. So I'm going to let that steep for a while so that it can be nice and strong. And then that'll be my tea. Okay, so let's talk about the cooking demonstration that I want to do. The herbing around. I always start with herbing around. So what I'm doing now is I'm decanting the plantain tincture that I made on June the 21st of this year with a bunch of fresh plantain leaves. And we did this in our plantain befriending plants intensive. And I think Livy's the one who labeled it for me. And so every day I have kept it in a dark place and I have shaken it every other day at the very least. And just as I shake it and as you shake your tinctures, I would recommend just thinking about all the things that they do, that this particular plant does for you and why you even made that tincture. So this is actually good for every body system. And it's an amazing plant for drolling, but I would rather use that fresh. So what I do is I pour out the menstruum and this is the mark, the leftover plant material. I don't know if you can see that or not, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze that to get as much of the alcohol off of there as possible. And then I'm going to just put it through a funnel into my plantain tincture jar. This I will just put into my compost bin. So let me do that right now. It's always nice to have your compost bin right here in the kitchen next to you so that nothing goes to waste. All right, so what are some of the things this does for you? It is treats blood poisoning, it's an astringent, and it works really well with lungs and supporting your lung health and respiratory, so it's just awesome. So then I'm going to take my bottle that's empty because I've used it all, and that's why I made another one, and I'm going to just use a funnel and then just pour it through. And then I'll put it down in my apothecary. This is one of the ones that I give away a lot. Okay. This week was really fun. I had a plant walk on Saturday at Ken and Renee Livingston's house and met some really wonderful people. And then afterwards, I got to go foraging with Ken and we got some muscadine grapes. So I have a freezer full of those. So see, this is ready to go. And then it's good to keep it in a Boston round that's dark so that it keeps from degenerating the medicine at all. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you how I make these fritters. And what I've done is I've got a cup of flour, and to that I've got half a teaspoon of salt and half a teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And I'll just mix that up pretty good. And then to that, I'm going to add 1 egg and a cup of milk. So the milk has already been measured out. I've got the coconut oil in a little iron skillet on my stove. put that in my compost bin. I'm just making like a batter for a fritter. And this is going to be a sweet fritter. You can make it savory if you wish. And what I love about making Queen Anne's lace into fritters is that it has a carrot flavor. The whole plant is edible. The roots have a carrot flavor, but because they're a biennial, you want to gather the root at the end of the first year or at the beginning of the second year before it sends up the energy up the stalk. So here's a second year plant. Look how tall that is. And here's the root, which is very woody, and there's no longer any energy here. It's just to hold up the plant so it can go to seed. The leaves smell like carrots, and they taste like carrots, and the root smells like it. And of course, here's the hairy legs. The flowers smell like it. I love to put them in my salads. I love to fritter them, which we're about to do. And the seeds are also incredible for eating and cooking with, and for using as a spice. Okay, so I'm gonna probably make this a little bit less thick. This looks a little thick to me. But the basic premise is you just take your scissors and you cut off. I like to keep a little bit of the stem to hold as a kind of like a handle. And then the fun thing that I was reading online for different recipes is that I took powdered sugar and I'm going to mix into the powdered sugar some cinnamon. So after I'm done making this into a fritter, I'm going to then dip it into the powdered sugar and the cinnamon, and that should be really good. And I'll let Jason try it. So I'll be doing a class on Queen Anne's lace for the next plant intensive because there's so much to say about it. And I've put together a whole bunch of recipes on how you can make Queen Anne's lace jelly, which I've made over here, how you can make Queen Anne's lace gelatin, sauerkraut, how to use seeds for food, how to make the fritters, how to make them into chips, which was my mentor Linda Runyon's favorite way. And all she would do would just be to heat up the oil, which I need to do right now. She would heat up the oil on her open fire on her homestead, and then she would just literally take these, I don't know where I put my scissors, but that would be nice to find. Anyway, they're over there. You see them? In here? Okay. Okay, so you just take the scissors and clip them off like this. And another thing about the Queen is that she has this interesting little spot in the middle of her lace, which looks like a drop of blood. And just the silly story is that the Queen was tatting lace and she pricked her finger and a drop of blood landed in the middle. Which is so strange is that there's so many Queen Anne's lace that have that, and there's so many that don't. And I just found out that it's because this is Daucus carota and this is Daucus pusilla, and which is much smaller. It doesn't get as tall as the Daucus carota does, and it doesn't have the dot in the middle, but they have the exact same constituents and they are just as delicious. Okay, and they do smell like carrots. So what she would do is she would take this carroty lettuce or flour and she would dip it into the hot oil, and then she would put it on a rock to dry. And then Todd would just come along, her little boy, and just grab them and just eat the flowers off, and that was his favorite thing to do. But one time she had this horrific thing happen, is he was gathering Queen Anne's lace so he could bring it home so his mom could make cookies or chips for him, is what they would call them. And she could see from a distance that it was not Queen Anne's lace, that it was the imposter or the look-alike, the poisonous hemlock, which is very poisonous. And so he had been sweating, he's wearing a little t-shirt, and his pores were wide open. And even holding the poison hemlock when you're in that type of a hot condition can be very toxic. So she immediately put him in the truck and drove the 60 miles or whatever to the hospital, and they were able to save his life. So poison hemlock is nothing to joke about, and I really think you need to do your research. And I just did an entire series on poisonous plants, so I'll put the link to that below in the comments. And also, by the way, guys, I'm now putting things on YouTube, so if you could please like and subscribe and check the bell. I don't know what that means. Does that mean that it'll give notifications? Okay, that'll give you a notification when I post a new video, which is every week. So that would really help me, and it would give, I'm not sure how that helps me, but I know it does. So please do that. That would be great. So you can see that this is Daucus carota and this is Daucus pusilla, but it is still Queen Anne's lace. And when you look at this flower with the jeweler's loop, it is just so insanely beautiful. And each flower with its 5 petals and its 5 stamens will close up into 2 seeds. They become 2 seeds. So you get a lot of seeds out of one umbel. So I love these. Okay. What else did I want to tell you? So let me go ahead and just go ahead and make a few of these fritters, and then we'll come back and I'll start telling you what's on Nature's Wave. Okay. This looks really thick to me. I'm going to just make it a little thinner with just some water. And the oil is ready to go. And I have a paper towel over here, so I'm ready to put them over there when I'm done. And then I also want to bring over here the sugar, the powdered sugar and the cinnamon, and stir that up a little bit so that I could then dip it into that. So let's do that. You can also make this savory. You don't have to make it sweet, but I just feel like having something sweet right now would be fun. All right, that looks pretty good. All right. So like I said, Linda would just put it right in there. And I've done that many, many times, and I love that too. And what you can do is you can salt the oil. You can put some cumin if you're having a Mexican meal. You can even put sugar and cinnamon in there if you want to make it sweet, and then just you know, fry up the flower heads, which is fine. But this time I'm going to actually make it into a fritter. So I'm just pushing it down in. Get lots of that good batter on there. And then, oh, that sounds good. And it went right back out into its umbel. So let me try another one. You want to do this when the flowers are at the height of their energy, before they've been completely pollinated and start to close up, because then you wouldn't have as near as tasty a treat. I think 3 will do. You can actually use a fork to kind of hold down the flowerets. And you might need to do the other side. You know, like do a couple minutes on each side. Yeah, that's not brown enough. Are you going to be brave enough to try it? Okay.
Make sure it's cooked all the way.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I chose to talk about this plant tonight is because it is starting to go to seed, and honestly some of its best medicine is the seed, and so I would just try to get like a whole gallon of the seeds if you can. It doesn't take very many plants to get a lot of seeds. I'm going to flip that over on this side. And also the flowers are starting to fade, and at least where I live. And so I wanted you to get a chance to do this with your family and to have this treat. And like I said many times, that foraging is highly seasonal, and so you kind of have to do things while you can, when you can get it. And then also making it into an infusion or a decoction and drinking it as a tea is probably one of the most healing ways to use this particular herb. Although a lot of herbalists do use the tincture, which I've never done. They like to grow on pastures and on roadsides. So always, as always, when you're gathering your wild foods, make sure that you're gathering from a healthy area, never around a golf course or railroad tracks or next to a road. So I was out in the pasture today, and it was just the perfect place to gather. I'll post pictures of it later. Okay. So I'll do the rest
Bring
later.
them over so people can see close.
Yeah, I want to put them inside of this first.
Can you show them first what it looks like when it
Oh
comes out?
yeah, can you see it?
Up high a little bit.
Up higher?
There you go, like that.
Okay, so this one here. I don't know if I cooked it long enough, but I want to get to teaching class, so we'll just go ahead and do this now. So I'm going to push it down with the fork into the sugar. Flip it over and do the other side. And then shake it off. And I'll put it on a little plate. You can snip off the stems then with the scissors. I think I would probably like it better the way I usually do it, where I just fry it up like a chip. But we'll see. I've never tried it like this, and we'll see what it's like.
Just in a few more minutes.
But yeah, it's too hot to eat right now. Okay, so let's come back over here. Okay. So one of the books that I really recommend getting, especially if you're homeschooling or if you're a child at heart, but this is a good store, A Botany Adventure for Kids ages 9 to 99, and it's Shanleya's Quest, and it talks about all 8 of the most common plant families and what their characteristics are like. And Shanleya goes on a quest to each of these islands where, like here's the parsley island, and so celery is in this family, and so is fennel and anise, etc. So it is. This is a really good book, and it's an adventure. And Thomas Elfelt, he's written the book Botany in a Day, which is amazing. So I would recommend that as well. But this is a fun read, and it will really help you to respect the parsley family. I don't have a poison hemlock to show you because the only access I have to poison hemlock nearby is at Todd Island Park, and they've actually closed that park as they're trying to fix it, so I couldn't get it for you to show you. So I'm going to try my tea. That is so good. It has a real licoricey flavor, probably because of the anise, and it has that carrot flavor as well. It's very fragile. Okay, the last thing I want to do with Queen Anne's lace is I put some blue food coloring in here, and I'm putting some yellow food coloring in here. Is there anything in there? Huh. It's been many years since I've used that. Let's not bother with that one. We'll try the green one. Well, that's not going to work. Okay, so I have blue in here, so that'll be fine. So what I'm going to do, and I'll do more colors later when I can get that out, is you just cut this at a 45-degree angle, cut the stem, and just put that right into the water, and then leave it overnight. And then in the morning, the flower should be blue, or red, or purple, or whatever color you've dyed it. So I think that's kind of fun. So I'll show pictures of it later. All right, let's talk about Nature's Wave. So Nature's Wave is all about where the energy is, and so it's part of the skill of foraging is to kind of surf Nature's Wave, which comes by fast and furious. And in the winter, we're waiting and waiting to see something grow, and everything is alive, but it's underground, and all the energy is stored in the roots. So here's some burdock root, which I was able to harvest at Amy Fiedler's Springhouse Farm, and this will be turned into pepperoni for my Italian Wild Food Feast, which will be September 17th. It'll be from 4 to 8, probably 9. And it's going to be amazing. So if you've never been to one of my Wild Food Feasts, you're definitely going to want to sign up for that. And sign up early because it's an awful lot of work to prepare, and I really need to know how many are going to be here. And we'll forage, and then we will cook together, and then we will eat, and it's always amazing. So we'll not only have pizza, but we'll have probably about 10 different courses which will be super fun and enjoyable and tasty. So that'll be great. Some other roots that I would recommend getting right now are the dandelion roots. Dandelions are perennials. So it's important to know the difference between an annual, a biennial, and a perennial. An annual comes up for 1 year and then it just disappears. But if you leave the seeds there, it'll reseed itself and volunteers will come up. And so Lambsquarter is one of my favorite wild edibles, and that's one of the ones you really want to let go to seed at least one of your plants so that you can constantly have every year a new supply of Chenopodium album, which is a relative of quinoa and a delicious wild edible. Another thing that so that's the annual. Then a biennial lives for 2 years. The first year, all of the energy goes into a little basil rosette, and that basil rosette doesn't have any flowers, it just has leaves. And so Queen Anne's lace is a biennial. And so the first year, it's just these beautiful lacy leaves, and that's kind of where people get in trouble with thinking that they're digging up a wild carrot when it's actually poison hemlock. So I cannot tell you how important it is to know 100% accuracy what it is you're consuming before you ever put anything in your mouth. And especially if you're a child, you make sure you double check with your parents. And because the early leaf, that first whole year, is just a basil rosette of these beautiful carrot-like leaves. But poison hemlock does the same thing. And so poison hemlock leaves are different looking than these leaves, but they're similar. So be careful make sure that the leaf smells like a carrot, or just wait until the next year when the energy goes up and starts to make these beautiful flowers and seed heads. And make sure that it has those hairy stems. Okay, so that's super important. But the key to gathering roots for a biennial is you want to gather the root at the end of the first year, because all of that energy is in the root and in that basil rosette of leaves. So if it's an evening primrose, or it's a burdock, or it's a Queen Anne's lace, that is when you want to collect the root, at the end of the first year or the beginning of the second year. And so that's super important to remember that, because otherwise, like this root I was showing you here, there's really nothing juicy or delicious about this root at all. It's just very woody, and it smells okay. I mean, you could probably put it into a stock pot or something, just to get whatever nourishment is still there, but most of it is already gone into the flowers and the seeds. All right, and then a perennial just comes back year after year. So yellow dock root, you can collect any time of the year. Same thing with dandelion. And there's a lot of perennials. They just keep coming. Echinacea is a perennial. Okay, so the Queen Anne's lace root you're going to collect at the end of the first year or the beginning of the second year if you want a carrot. When you cultivate carrots, you never see these flowers, do you? Because you are harvesting those roots at the end of that first year when they're nice and big. If you didn't harvest them, the next year they would put up the flowers just like this. And then you would have the seeds and it would keep propagating itself. But that's the key about collecting roots. And there's a lot of edible roots, but all I have to show you right now is just the burdock, which is amazing, and the dandelion, which I use in my coffee every day. And what you can do with the Queen Anne's lace roots is you can actually dry the first year roots, and you can powder them and make that a coffee substitute too, which is something on my bucket list. I've actually never tried that, so I'm interested to see how that turns out. See, then the next thing, the energy goes up into the shoots, and the only shoots I have to show you right now are Purslane shoots. Look at them, they're like plumbing, how big they are. So what would you do? These are extremely good for you, and they're very tasty and really crunchy and like a succulent, so delicious. So these leaves are good, but this is excellent to make into pickles, and Jason really loves purslane pickles, and I do too. Or you could just cook it in eggs, or just eat it in your stews or soups or casseroles, any way that you would like to eat a tasty vegetable. The leaves that are out right now, Lambsquarter is still for the picking. I don't have any in front of me. I forgot to go outside and get some. But if you have farmed it all summer long, like I taught you to do, you will still have meristematic growing points at the tips of these tall plants. And so you can just pick those off and leave the older leaves alone. The other thing that's so exciting about Lambsquarter is that they are going to seed, and before the seeds are ripe, it makes a fabulous vegetable. So I did a whole class on Lambsquarter, and you need to eat those, and those are great. And in my class, I tell you all about those little black bugs that you're going to start seeing from this point on all over Lambsquarter. So make sure you harvest before they come. And if you watch my video, you'll understand why they come. When they go to seed, that's when you want to collect gallons of them, because they are so high in nutrition, in protein. 17 grams for a half a cup. Let's see what other seeds. Plantain seeds. So Plantago major sets up these wonderful seed stalks in the middle of their basal rosette, and these are psyllium husks. This is Metamucil, basically, is made of this. And so you can, what I love to do is strip these off and fill out like a quart or something of these to last. I use them in my crackers. I use them in making breads or any cookies, anytime, or energy balls, anytime you want to add some protein, anytime you want to add some fiber to what you're eating, and they're very nutty and I think delicious. So those seeds are worth getting right now. The Queen Anne's lace seeds, see how they've started bird caging like this. When they're unripe, they're fruits, which is really strange. I never knew that before. And these fruits have like a really carroty and crunchy flavor, so you can eat that almost like a vegetable. And then the seeds, once they've actually gone to seed, you can see how dark it gets. So I'll show you what that looks like. So see how dark brown that is. And this is when you can collect that and turn that into a spice. And so Linda would do that and use this to season. She uses it as a salt substitute. It's kind of like caraway seed. It has a really, really wonderful smell and a really delicious flavor, and you can actually put that into your cooking the last 10 minutes or so to add the nourishment and to soften the seeds. What else is on there? Nature's Way. Berries. So we still have blueberries. It's interesting, when we bought our blueberry bushes, we have one. A lot of people get blueberries that harvest or come to maturity in July, and ours come into maturity in August. And we're still, do we have any more on our tree? We're still getting blueberries. And so blueberries are, these aren't wild, but when I went to the Deep South Herbalism Conference, there were millions of wild blueberries in the Chiaja forest.
Sounds right.
Chiaja, I don't remember what it was called, but wherever I was, it was so beautiful. And it's like all you could see was blueberry bushes, and I thought, I want to come back when they're in full berry, because that would be crazy. It would be amazing, but I'm not going back this year. And then here's some berries that we talked about last week was sumac. And so the sumac, gather these on a dry day so that the malic acid isn't washed off. And these are delicious for all the things we talked about last week. And then here, this is Solomon seal, and look at those beautiful blueberries. They're not edible, but I just thought that was important to point out, because you know what? If you see those beautiful blueberries, you could, especially children, they would think, well, that looks really tasty. That looks like a blueberry, but it is not an edible part of this amazing plant. And it does have many edible gifts, but that's not one of them. So I just thought I'd point that out. The flowers that come up before these taste like asparagus. The early stalk tastes like asparagus, not now. It's not growing. It's not meristematic any longer. And the root is an incredible vegetable. So there's great gifts, especially medicinally, but edibly, of Solomon seal. So just don't eat the berries. What else? Fruits. Oh my gosh. So Max and I were out at the pasture today, and the Lord gave me a new sit spot, sort of, and it's right underneath a magnolia tree, a Magnolia acuminata. And so right above my head were all these beautiful large leaves that I just love so much, and their seed pods are turning color and they're turning red, and then these seeds are going to be orange. And I did a whole class on this back in March 30th, I think. So that's a really precious plant to me. So to have that right over my head was really nice. And the stream was flowing behind me. Then we went out and foraged, and we went out in the middle of the pasture, and there was a bunch of apples. So we got a few of those. And I didn't have a ball with me, so I used it to play ball with him. And then he got all hot and sweaty, so we went down to the creek, and I would throw it into the creek, and he would jump in and chase this all the way down the bubbling water, and that was really fun. So apples are coming, and there's so many apple trees here in the high country that no one ever picks. So look for them and ask God. The scripture I wanted to share today is, Lord, open my eyes that I might observe wonderful things. How's it go? Open my eyes that I might see wonderful things from your word. And so God's word is amazing. And so every day I'm always reading his word and thinking about it, because I want to think his thoughts, because his ways are so much wiser than ours. But I also changed that verse a little bit by adding one letter. Open my eyes that I might see wonderful things from your world. I just add the L in there. And I just ask the Lord to show me his love all around me and evidences of his love for me, and to show me what there is to eat all around. And so it was incredible how much there is to eat just in the field. There must have been at least 10 edible plants, probably more like 15 in the field, and then the trees all around were amazing as well. Yes. Oh, you want to try it?
I might want to try it. Yeah, let me see.
I'll drink my tea.
Sugar, cinnamon.
You can't go wrong with that. Can you taste the carrots?
No, not really. You taste the
Let me take a bite.
batter. You taste the batter, and
Oh yeah, I can taste that carrot.
oh. Well, if you could eat carrots this way.
That really, it almost tastes like a carrot cake.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's a good idea. Carrot cake. What?
That was good. All right. Then nuts. So nuts are out. And these are my favorite acorns. These are Chestnut Oak acorns. And look at the cute little caps that they have. So these are amazing. And I do a whole class on acorns, which I'll be posting really soon, because I want you to take advantage of this amazing gift. And the white oaks were also full of acorns. They haven't dropped yet. These dropped, and so they were ready to pick. The Buckeyes were out, and Buckeyes are not edible, but they're so beautiful. See if I can open it up. So when it's totally dry and ready to open, it'll open on its own. But I just wanted to force it a little bit to show you what's inside, because it's so beautiful. The beech nuts were out. The hickory nuts are coming. The beech nuts look like this. And these hard husks on the outside open up, and they have like a triangular pyramid-shaped nut on the inside. And Linda Runyon thought those had a particular delightful taste. So there's actually two of them in here. So here's one. But I've never found a way to enjoy eating them, and Linda's no longer with us, so I can't call her and say, excuse me, why did you consider that such a delicacy when I think they're disgusting? But she lived off the land, and so I think her taste buds certainly changed. This is a hickory nut, and the actual nut that you want to eat is inside of this larger husk, and you can turn this into milk just like you can almond milk in your blender. So I couldn't get this open, but this is what they look like. So I'd made it into a necklace, and they're just so beautiful, and they're not edible. And I just think it's important to know the things that aren't edible so that you aren't tempted to eat them. Mushrooms, look at this thing. So Rachel, what is that? It has gills on this side, and I've never really investigated mushrooms, so I really want to challenge you to find somebody who knows edible mushrooms and can teach you in person, because this is not an area that you want to fool around with, because there's a lot of poisonous ones and a lot of good ones too. So it's important to find somebody who knows that it certainly won't be me. So bring the wild home, and I'll be posting this week for our class the Wild Intentional Garden, because I really want you guys to be collecting seeds. Collect the seeds of the Queen Anne's lace, collect the seeds of, what are some other ones I have that I wanted to talk about? Collect the burdock seeds. You can't have enough burdock on your land. Collect, what other seeds did I want to talk about? Well, just all the seeds, sumac, anything that you want. Bring the seeds to, gather the seeds now. Echinacea, get them from your friend's garden, get them from me, whatever, because you cannot go wrong having the wild harvest, because you don't have to pamper them, you don't have to water them, you don't have to do anything with them. They just grow on their own like weeds, and they're so much higher in energy and nutrition than the cultivated kind. So I'll be posting that for you guys tomorrow. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about things that you can do for stewardship. This is the most unfortunate snake root. This is white snake root. And this is the last of it on my whole acre. There's nothing else. I think this is all I could find that's still left. But I used to have hundreds of these, and y'all probably do too. So the way you can identify it is it has a very red stem. And so I literally rip it up by the roots. But if you don't have time to do that, at least go through with your scissors and cut it off halfway down so you get rid of all the flower heads so they do not go to seed and spread, because they're in the Asteraceae family, so they will blow as far as imaginable. So get rid of this. This is very poisonous as well. So remove heads, seed heads of invasives that you don't want. I have a lot of wing stem, and there's nothing poisonous about it, but I only want really edible things on my land. So I don't have time to uproot it all. I've done a lot of that, but what I'm doing is I'm going through with my, what's the name of my shears that I use? Felco. My Felco shears, which I love, and I just cut off the top seed heads so that I don't have that going to seed either. Okay, that's pretty much all of my wild wisdom for this week. I hope you're eating wild every day. I hope you ask God to open your eyes to see wonderful things in His world, and that you just expect that it's there. And you will be amazed at how provided for we are, and learn what to do with these things, because this is just reclaiming common sense and reclaiming the joy of creation and getting to know our Creator in the process. So God bless you. Thank you for joining me, and I'll be posting the Wild Intentional Garden for tomorrow's class.